to the top custom Hearthstone cards of the week, the show where we look at some fan-made cards from the r/custom Hearthstone subreddit. Subscribe to know when the next episode is out, and as always, leaving a like would be greatly appreciated. First up is Murloc Stack, 5 mana 1/3 Shaman Murloc that counts as 3 Murlocs and has the Death Rattle summon 3 1/1 Murlocs. Now because this card counts as 3 Murlocs, it interacts a bit differently to some Murloc synergy. For War Leader, Coldlight Seer, and Grimskull Oracle, this minion gets 3 times the value, giving you a 7/3, 1/9, or 4/3. Also, if you buff Murloc Stack with Gentle Megasaur, the Adapt effect will be applied 3 times to this one minion, so with +3 attack, you could get 10/3, you could also get a 4/6, or a 1/12. The possible stat lines with this card are so on point, with the ridiculous Murloc flavor. Also, playing this card will count as 3 Murlocs for other cards like Murloc Tidecaller. I don't know if it counts as 3 separate minions for other cards like Knife Juggler. The text suggests that it would count as 3 minions, but I would rather have Murloc Stack just count as 1 minion, but also 3 Murlocs, if that makes any sense. In addition, Murloc Stack would be the first Murloc ever to have a Death Rattle. And this Death Rattle is pretty powerful because it's the first time where your opponent won't be able to kill your entire board of Murlocs with one swing. Your opponent might have to spend all their mana playing an expensive board clear, and this Death Rattle gives you the chance of having 3 1/1 Murlocs ready on your board to attack next turn. And this is pretty powerful in a Murloc deck. With all of this said, Murloc Stack is pretty slow. It's expensive, and the bad stats aren't going to really help you if your opponent already has an established board to deal with this effectively. Comboing this with Coldlight Seer and Gentle Megasaur could work well, but playing this by itself risks getting it killed before being able to take advantage of its special ability. And playing it with a non-permanent buff like War Leader will usually end in your opponent just killing the War Leader, and now they only have to deal with Murloc Stack as a 1/3. But Murloc decks might be able to overcome this. You're almost always guaranteed to have a good opening with Murlocs, and most of the time by turn 5 you either have control over the board or at least you're evenly matched with your opponent. My guess is that playing a 1/3 on turn 5, while it is slow tempo, is probably going to be able to stay out on the board in most Murloc decks. And even if your opponent does use their board clear that turn, that still leaves you with those 3 1/3s ready on the board. I really like how Murloc Stack encourages Murloc board synergies both before and after its Death Rattle. Its stats and cost might make it a little bit of a clunky card, but it's a curve or a later turn value option for Murloc Shaman that could actually give them that last bit of value needed to win. Also, 5 out of 5 on the Photoshop artwork. Next up is Eclipse, 7 mana Druid spell that resets both players' mana crystals to 0. Now this is a controversial card. Some people say it's too overpowered comboed with the Twig, but personally I think this card would be more of a meme than a legitimate strategy that would ruin the game. So this combo involves the Twig, a shunned legendary weapon that had people shitting their pants when they heard a Druid could ramp up 10 mana, but when the card was actually released, everybody realized it was terrible and it saw absolutely no play. In this Eclipse combo, you want to get Twig down to 1 durability, you then play Eclipse, and then you break the Twig to give yourself 10 mana while your opponent will now only have 0. Now I think what people fear about this combo is that it's going to happen early in the game, and not even that early. I'm talking like between turn 10 and 20, because that's kind of where most combos lie if they are successful decks. But the whole process of this combo is inconsistent and slow. You're telling me you're going to consistently draw a legendary weapon early in the game, attack with it 4 times, play Eclipse, break the Twig, and then have big expensive cards to punish your opponent with. I think this would be really hard to do consistently and early enough for it to really work against most decks. Where I could see this combo seeing play is in a super control meta. You could tech in Twig and this, where once you draw the combo in a later turn, it's okay to waste 4 mana playing a Twig. You can then pull off this combo and get yourself a big mana advantage in the late game. And I actually think this is a pretty cool way of winning a game. It's gonna take some time to draw the right cards, and your opponent will be able to see it coming when you play the Twig. But I think there are other ways Druid could use Eclipse, and maybe more as a meme. You could use this card to reset the crystals to mess up your opponent's curve, and then you could use the ramp cards you included in your deck that you can't really use anyways, and you can ramp up quickly to gain tempo advantage. Still, thinking about Druid ramping twice against you is maybe not the best idea. It's a really tough card. I think it wouldn't be competitive enough for it to see a lot of play, and I don't think cards have to be competitive in order for them to have good card design. While this card I think is a meme, it would definitely have a big impact on the game when it's actually played. You'll have to let me know if you think this card would be competitive or not. Next up is Forlorn Lover, 6 mana 5/5 legend for Rogue. It reads, whenever another minion dies, shuffle it into your deck. It keeps any enchantments. So enchantments, or buffs and debuffs, are special abilities gained by a minion, basically anything that affects that minion besides damage given to it. This means stat buffs, combo buffs, and even silence debuffs will be carried by a minion when it is shuffled into your deck. In addition, it's not just your minions, but also any of your opponent's minions. The card doesn't quite combo with any of Rogue's big removals, but if you're able to kill a powerful enemy minion when Forlorn Lover is out on the board, then you can add some serious value to your deck. On the other side, if your opponent plays something like Unleash the Hounds and trades a bunch of weak minions in, then your deck will now have a bunch of terrible draws. I kind of see Forlorn Lover as a combination between Sonya Shadow Dancer and Baleful Banker, except it also keeps any enchantments. I think the fact that the minion is shuffled into your deck and not put into your hand is probably the biggest drawback for this card in Rogue. It would be great to shuffle an Edwin into any Rogue deck, but right now Rogue's best decks are Tempo and Quest, and with Quest getting nerfed, Tempo is Rogue's best bet, and I think this card is just too slow in that deck. I think Rogue's the perfect class for this card to be balanced, not too many buffs, some unique enchantments, but the playstyle is just too fast for this card to be worth playing. Forlorn Lover could have a lot of really cool interactions, it would be pretty powerful in adding more value to your deck, but it needs a slower Rogue deck in order to see play. We'll see in upcoming expansions if Tempo Rogue can slow down a bit, and then I think a card like this could be really powerful. Next up we have Master of Solutions, 2 mana 1/2 neutral with the battle cry, choose a minion, add a random spell to your hand that can destroy it. So the key word with this card is that it gives you a random spell that can destroy the selected minion. This means if you target something small like Firefly, it could give you Arcane Shot, but it also could give you Twisting Nether. The type of minion you select will affect the random spells you might get, so picking a minion that can't be targeted by spells or hero powers will give you a non-targeting spell. This means you're probably going to be more likely to get a board clearing spell. A frozen minion might give you Snap Freeze, a demon, Sacrificial Pact, etc, etc. And I think it would also be cool if they could even include spells that take into consideration your board state, like Shadow Flame or Blade Flurry. Still, this battlecry doesn't guarantee you'll destroy that minion you selected. With more random cards like Brawl and Deadly Shot, these are just cards that can kill the minion, but it's not necessarily going to happen. Now, I'm not one to usually encourage a random effect like this one. In fact, I don't know if it would be a great idea to put this in the game, because in Arena, this might end up breaking Crypt. But I really like the idea of selecting a certain minion and then getting some sort of value based off of that. There are the boring removals like Flame Strike, the heavy RNG ones like Deadly Shot, but then there are the other spells that are much more dynamic and memey. For example, you could get Unleash the Hound sometimes off of this, Cataclysm, Toxic Arrow, Slam. These are cards that could kill the selected minion, but you can use them in different ways to instead change up the game. I mean, there are really a lot of different spells that can kill minions, so with this card, it would really be a toss-up to how much value you got, and how fair it is to your opponent for getting that random value. And that's the thing I kind of fear, is playing against this card, it might not really be fun or interactive. Still, the premise of a battle cry that selects a minion and then gets some sort of value based off of that specific minion, I don't know, I feel like Master of Solutions could be pretty harmless, but the random spells might just end up hindering the gameplay for both players. If you guys know of a way to change this card to make it less RNG and more memes, let me know down below. Up next is Secret Hideout, 1 mana rogue spell that puts 3 random rogue secrets into the battlefield. After one triggers, destroy the other 2. This is a really smart spell because it takes advantage of the few or only 3 secrets rogue has. It makes them cheaper, thus more playable, but at the same time it gives control over to your opponent on which secret they want to activate. For this 1 mana, you either get Evasion, Sudden Betrayal, or Cheat Death. Whichever one activates first is the secret you're going to get, so your hero could either take damage, your opponent can attack with one of their minions, or your opponent can kill one of your minions. That means this card could be as weak as your opponent just pinging face to activate Evasion, they could Sudden Betrayal into a small minion, or they can Cheat Death one of your low value minions. There's ways of playing around these secrets that are easy enough, but still, playing around these secrets is often going to mess up your opponent's turn. In fact, the secrets act less like secrets and instead as like a puzzle piece for your opponent to figure out how to activate one of these secrets for the least amount of resources. In most cases, playing against this, you're probably going to look to activate Evasion because it's the least valuable secret, but that's going to be tough if you already have 2 minions out on the board because you won't be able to attack with one of them, or else you'll activate Sudden Betrayal. If Taunt's in the way, that can activate Cheat Death, and if you have Lethal on the board, then you need to find a way to activate one of the other secrets besides Evasion so that you can kill your opponent. It makes all the secrets better because it has 3 different ways of activating one of the secrets, and at the same time that gives your opponent 3 different choices to make. I could totally see this working in a rogue tempo deck. It is kind of a meme card and would be really bad against certain matchups like Mage. I think it's actually a really powerful card, it's really interesting to play against, and I wouldn't be surprised if Blizzard printed a card like it in an upcoming expansion. Alright, now it is time for some fan-submitted cards. You can send over the .png files to my email or my Twitter, and feel free to upload to the r/customhearthstone subreddit while you're at it. First off, from @NotAlden, we have the Homegiver, whose battlecry gives you one of the least played legendary minions. I don't know how this would necessarily work, like if it would be based off of the play rates of the legendaries or their inclusion in decks, but my recommendation is instead have the battlecry give you a random legendary from the top 20 most disenchanted legendary minions. I think Millhouse Manastorm would be number 1.
Hello darkness, my old friend.
From Desera, we have the Blue Knight, which has the battlecry, equip a weapon with the combined stats of all other weapons you've played this game. I know this is for Paladin, but I really want this for my Warrior weapon deck. I know it would be terribly overpowered in Warrior, and this could single-handedly create a Warrior aggro deck, but I just want it, okay? But yeah, in Paladin, it's pretty cool, I guess. Its Dink Ferret has this minion where at the start of the game, if your deck only contains death rattles, play their death rattles as battle cries. It's a really tough requirement for a deck, and you couldn't even play the priest quest with it, but the reward might just be crazy enough for it to be worth it. If this card were printed, I'd go to Wild just to play this in a Weasel Tunneler deck. And last up from Emmanuel, a start of the game minion that makes your hero power Dinomancy. It's kind of cool to have a guaranteed beast buff at the start of the game. Kind of the problem with building a deck around Dinomancy is that you don't always have that hero power. I like this version because you can start at the game getting a board of buffed beasts, and then once this minion dies, you can always go back to smorking. That's all for this episode of the top custom Hearthstone cards of the week. Next scripted video is going to be a humorous cards video, so subscribe to know when that comes out, leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it, and until next time, ta-ta.
That's nice.